Recording in
Yeah.
progress. Lovely. Hi, Naomi. It's really wonderful to have you here, and thank you for your time. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. And I could probably throw a lot of compliments at you now for the first 5 minutes. Um, but maybe we should mention that we basically met during a happy coincidence during your project Gen Z Dialogues already a few years ago. And ever since then, I realized that well, speaking for myself, that I'm someone who is very much in my head, occupied with my thought processes. And sometimes that's interesting, fascinating, but sometimes it doesn't feel so good and might be even like counterproductive. And you, on the other hand, as far as I'm concerned, you've already learned a great deal to embrace, to work with the body probably as a pedagogical and even as an emancipatory project. So I really would love to learn about that, because it seems to me that you attend to problems we face with an entirely different form of complexity, and that's fascinating to me. Maybe you like to describe your approach or put it in your own words, like what are you doing? Because I'm curious about that, and maybe we can start the interview like that.
Yes. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. Um, so it's super interesting to just try to put it into words, because also I'm very influenced from many different things. So I've started with through my art studies. So I guess that's how we also met, and how I started to explore the body as a research tool. But I think the journey or my fascination started even before, in my youth, when I started doing yoga and when I started exploring my body as a way to get into a deeper connection to myself and also to the world around me. So I think that has shaped me from early on. And then during my art studies, I was really interested in humans and in interviewing humans and kind of getting closer to what the human experience is like, specifically in that project, for example, regarding my own generation, or in another project, it was regarding the concept of freedom and how we relate to that. In another project, it was related to the connection to our own bodies and the body image specifically for females. So I think I'm really exploring many different, or I have explored many different fields and topics. But for me, it's really always about getting close to the essence, or kind of getting close to, the essence of that human experience. So like, really, okay, but what is it actually like? And when you now say, like, sometimes you get lost in mental concepts, or you get lost in kind of thought processes, I feel like the mind is a very helpful tool in order to get closer to a certain truth, but the body is holding so much more and so much deeper wisdom in a way. And it's beautiful that right now also I feel like in the West we're getting closer to rediscovering what the body is actually holding, and how we can also access truth through intuition, for example, through intuitive processes, through processes that we cannot only logically dissect and logically like walk through step by step, but sometimes also emotions and complexities that cannot be described or grasped by the mind need to be taken into consideration for really getting to the core of what a certain thing is about. And okay, I hope this was somewhat like comprehensive, but I just feel like it brings so much more layeredness and complexity and like nuances to a certain truth if we also take our intuitive bodily responses and feelings and these subtleties into consideration. that, for example, happens through movement, like the intuition of movement, of just the spontaneous movement that comes up when you, for example, try to embody a certain concept, or that happens also in conversation. I feel like just that immediate response of the body, of the human, that cannot be conceptualized, but that is just appearing in the very moment. And that is, I think, what makes, for example, interviewing and also research through movement, or like self-connection through movement, sharing circles, so interesting for me, because it's so immediate and it's so much more pure and so much more layered at the same time, in comparison to when we just try to like have it all in a very linear and kind of mind curated, structured way. So the body is often more chaotic and more intuitive, more messy and more ungraspable, but there's also so much to explore and to discover there.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's wonderful. And I mean, there's so much to unpack and so much interesting stuff you just mentioned. Yeah, I read somewhere that we even have not even 6 or 7 senses, but almost 42 senses, something like that. I wanted to make a list for that, but that would be probably a different project. But you mentioned yoga, for instance, like working with the body. And as far as I'm concerned, these seemingly uncomfortable movements that help to increase something like GABA, GABA, which is really relaxing and soothing, so helping your body to relax. And then, as you mentioned, these kind of learning lessons from the own body. I love that about that. And indeed, I'm coming from a field where we work with in future studies where we do work with images of the future, so very visual in a certain way, a lot of textbook analytics, but then still the lesson is that we need to get out of this textbook analytics and semantic abstraction thing, and also situate more holistic learning experiences. I'm wondering, there's something else that I'm interested about all of this. Because as far as I'm concerned, when you look at the mainstream images that we are being bombarded with superhero stories, for instance, there we have superheroes, they always want to create stability and prevent things from changing. And then the villains usually always are the very creative and original people who are scheming and plotting and trying to disrupt everything, but of course being labeled and framed as the villains. And I was thinking, like, the kind of self-exploration, or also exploration through dialogues and exploration through the body that you prefer, how much is it about change and changing yourself and exploring the possibilities of change without actually knowing what that might be?
Wow, I think change and embracing change and being able to deal with change is a huge part of all of this, and it's a huge part, I guess, also of futurist studies. And I'm really exploring that for myself at the moment, because like as soon as we're confronted with change, it means a loss of control, and it means kind of having to let go of something that we've known in order for something new to emerge. And if we don't take the body with us in that process, we are so at risk to just get back to an old pattern or an old story that we relive again. So I think to really embrace change, whether that is collectively or individually, is that we have to increase the capacity for us in our bodies to stand that insecurity to stand that feeling of like, I'm so uncomfortable because I cannot take hold of anything at the moment. I really have to let go of what I've known in order for something completely new to find its way and to enter into that empty space. But first I have to be able to really create that empty space and to hold that empty space so I can listen, I can sense, I can feel, okay, what is that new? Without directly going in and saying, okay, I just put in like what I've already known and then I'm safe. So the body always wants to feel safe. And the mind also wants to feel safe. So it's really that we have to bring in another dimension even, or another kind of capacity to really hold that empty space and to trust that the new like needs to be received into that empty space. And it's not just like rebuilding what we already know, but in order for a new, the new, like whether we can also transfer that to like the ecological crisis on this planet at the moment. Like things are not working anymore. So it's like, okay, we are living like inside a certain paradigm, a certain reality, but we cannot receive something new if we don't have the capacity to hold an empty space, to hold like this uncertainty, this instability, this like not knowing yet, so the new can come in. So that is a beautiful aspect of embracing change and really being able to hold change that must be referred back, or that can be beautifully referred back to the body. Because I mean, especially with these larger crises and developments, I think what helps most is to refer it back to the individual self, so we can actually relate to it, so we can actually feel it. And it really refers back to the individual body. It really refers back to our own feeling of safety, of being able to embrace change, of that capacity of the nervous system actually. So it's like, you can really relate it back to the individual. I guess everything that happens on an individual level is also mirrored on a collective level. So what about your own body? Like, what about your own ability to, when a certain reality or a certain construct in your own personal life is crumbling, are you able to stand that space in which you don't know yet what's coming next? And that's something that I really experience like on a regular basis in my own life, because the more you are open to new perspectives, to coming to like a deeper truth for yourself, to coming like a sense of, okay, I really want to like live what's authentic for me, or I want to like embrace a certain way of being, a certain way of living that feels really aligned. Okay, that's a beautiful vision. It's always beautiful to dream of something, but then can you really stand that intensity of having to let go of the old and holding that empty space, like literally from a nervous system perspective? Are you able to hold that uncertainty? And that also refers back to like this mind-body connection. The mind always refers back to old concept. The mind tries to hold on to what is already known. The mind tries to like draw connections of like, okay, I know that, so it's safe. I know that, so we can go like that. So the mind always takes what it already knows. And I feel like this capacity to open up to the new can really only emerge in the body. So we can hold the mind and let it like kind of be all over the place, but we need to develop that safety in the body in order to let that new come in.
Yeah, that reminds me of something. I once did some improv theater course, and it was amazing because the people who were teaching us, they were really, really good at being in this space of uncertainty, playing with it so joyful, and yeah, just improvising out of any situation something interesting and fascinating. But of course, it was a performative act, right? So it was always to portray and to show something to an audience. And I'm just wondering now, listening to you, when you mentioned also the environmental crises, and we are obviously in crisis mode almost in every aspect of our society, anywhere, everywhere, that the kind of exploration, is it needed to have first of all this inner exploration, this inner journey, or is that also like a false dichotomy, like doesn't matter if it's performative for an audience, or if it's just really for ourselves, the inner journey? Um, is there a recipe? What might come first, or what is better, or what we need, what before we can address the big existential crisis in plural that we are facing?
Mm, I think it doesn't. I think it doesn't matter if it's like first, you come in touch with it through a very personal, intimate exploration, and then it like expands into like your surroundings, or it's the other way around. You're inspired by something that you see. Maybe it's a performance, maybe it's somebody else sharing their experience of how they connect with themselves. Maybe it's that you're first very engaged in these collective processes, and then you realize, okay, you're forgetting about your own body, and you're forgetting about really integrating what you're working on within yourself. So I feel like that really doesn't matter, because every journey looks differently, and for somebody, yeah, something comes in at a certain time in their lives, and then it shifts. And I feel like that really doesn't matter, and we also really need to loosen up these kind of strict timelines or
Mm.
recipes, or like, okay, I need to do this in order to get that, because that is again also yeah, really coming from a mind's perspective, I guess, of like, okay, first this, then this, and now I need to like do this practice in order to get that. That is also again this linear thinking, and I feel like we really can loosen that up, and it also doesn't matter if we yeah, lose track of a certain practice and then come back to it, or if our perspectives are changing, if the intensity of how much we're working with ourselves or within a certain field is shifting over time. I feel like we don't have to yeah, get too attached to certain timelines or recipes, because that again kind of yeah, makes like brings us away from the actual thing that it's about, and it adds this layer of like, okay, of this linearity, which then brings us back from what it's actually about again.
Hmm. Yeah. This is interesting, because in theory, I understand that our thinking has to become pluralistic. So in
Mhm.
theory, but what does that mean for my body? How will I go through life and even like live eventful in pluralistic terms? That's I don't know. What does that mean?
Mhm.
How do I translate that into a modality for my body to be pluralistic, to live pluralistic thinking and being? Um, do you do you have a answer for that, or would that also be an intuitive process to try to feel into it?
Mm, yeah, I think it's just very important to explore that for yourself, and to really yeah, be open to also tap into yeah, sometimes in the body things feel very different than they feel in the mind or than they seem in the mind. So I think having a dialogue between, okay, this is a concept that I can understand mentally, and this is a concept that I can feel and practice and sense and embody. These two need to come together or need to inspire each other, I feel like. Now I lost track of what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, it's interesting in terms of like we still are stuck with this kind of false dichotomy that this is the mind, this is the body, and
Mm.
basically, and we talked about that earlier in our private conversation, that the kind of thinking really influences, I mean, the kind of thinking really influences our physical modality. I mean, of course, stress is a good example. If you're stressed in your mind, the cortisol will rush through your body and will poison your cells, so to say. Um, and 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 that's what, you know. There must be more than my mind always wants to think that there are tricks behind it. Like we need to escape the tricks or find out what the tricks are, decipher it, and then on the other hand, yeah, there's another modality that really wants to just relax, like from a body point of view, and just be present and just be attentive and receptive to the information that is around me, and the texture that I touch, and the smells I smell, and all of that. But then I get overwritten again by a brain, right?
Mhm.
Somehow. And I don't know if we actually have these cultural techniques to escape these traps, because there seems to be always a trap in thought, a trap in this thinking modality, and maybe you have some insights how to avoid the traps.
Mm. So do you mean like the mind in general, or do you mean a certain mode of the mind that is disruptive?
Yeah, I don't know if it's really like the conditioning and socialization we have inherited somehow, and we are used to trying to know an answer, try to be reductionistic about
Mm.
things, wanting to find a solution to a problem. We sometimes don't even know what the problem is. I don't know if this is that type or if there's something else going on. But what I witness around me are a lot of people who think they can solve things and know things. But then at the same time, I also witness a lot of people who get physically sick and who seemingly have developed maladaptive coping mechanisms to deal with life and to survive in their own little worlds. So, and I think there's obviously a correlation, and I would love to learn something that that helps us, helps me, helps all of us to avoid this trap that we, on one hand, want to know an answer, want to think this is the solution, this is the way forward, and on the other hand, also all seem to be insanely maladapted to what this life and this world and this universe actually is.
Mm.
I am throwing really big questions at you and like basically puzzling um, descriptions of the situation we find ourselves in,
Mm.
and probably won't be able to solve any of these riddles, but it's still interesting to explore that with you.
Yes. I think it also comes back to what I said to the previous question. Um, kind of letting the mind and the body meet somewhere in the middle. Like it's not the one thing or the other. It's not that the mind is distracting and the body is truthful, but like the body without the mind would also be super chaotic and aimless, and the mind without the body, I don't know, would also be quite empty, I guess, or just, yeah, it wouldn't have a container. So yeah, they need each other, and we kind of have to, yeah, also be a little bit gentle in the process. I feel like okay, sometimes the mind is drawing us away, and then it's helpful again, and sometimes the body shows its weak points, or they speak in different languages, I feel like. So yeah, and everything around us speaks in different languages, and I think the task is really to listen more than to speak, I guess. Like all the impulses that you get from inside, from outside, we tend to try to fix things, try to find solutions. But I think a very important practice of this day and age, of solving problems, of kind of finding solutions or finding pathways to new realities, new ways of being, is really also, yeah, this developing the ability to listen to the inside, to the outside, and to become also a little bit humble and a little bit like, yeah, more sensitive, attentive. I think that is something that I would like, that I just would like to drop and bring in here, that yeah, we can draw upon so many different qualities coming from the inside, coming from the outside, in conversation, in explorations. And I think what is important is that we, yeah, allow different kinds of modes and things, and like things to come together and to merge and to meet each other, to explore, to be playful, to see, okay, what happens if I listen to that, what happens if I bring that in, like this. I think that is, yeah, that is an important part in any kind of exploration, to, yeah, to allow that merging, that playing. Yeah. I would also like to say something to what you said before with like this improv theater. I think on what you've observed with that sense of playfulness, I think that playfulness is also a really important quality when we're talking about all of this, when we're talking about yeah, being able to create something new, being able to let things that have been separated merge, let things that have been separated kind of lead us to something new. Because in play, like we can see that in children, how they are being dropped into this unknown world, and then they kind of puzzle things together and are super open and curious, and they listen a lot, and they are like attentive and like putting that there and then seeing, hey, what happens now, and they ask questions. And I think that curiosity, that openness, that playfulness is the most important quality of all, that we really need to practice, and that we really need to bring into all processes more and more and more, because we are so like used to kind of trying to compress things, trying to, okay, what is it, how can I like grasp on it. And I think the most important quality that we can start to embrace more and more is that playfulness, that sensitivity, that also comes with a certain vulnerability, with a certain, okay, and I don't know, but I listen and I see and I rest, and then I go in again, and that kind of, yeah, allowing that movement that is possible through play and through curiosity.
Yeah, and I think also the playfulness in kids and children, like the ability to embody vividly characters that you are not, but that you can be, and then going through this adventure and really embracing this adventure, and also through that as a technique exploring like different alternatives, different realities, different possibilities. And then I'm thinking, okay, but nowadays we seem to be stuck on on a type of thinking that is exactly in opposition to that, is exactly in contradiction to that, because we seem to have always a narrative that this is my identity, this is me, this is that. I need to be this, I need to be whatever, an activist or a futurist or self-ascribed, I don't know, this is my ethnicity, this is my gender, this is my, so somehow a little rigid in a certain way, and not the playfulness kind of role-playing modality that usually seems so natural and intuitive for kids, where we are not being told that and that, and then we become people who self-identify with what we assume that must be it. And I'm thinking, you know, when change needs to change, like we know things are changing around us, of course, there's even change, accelerating, changing change. But when we know, I mean, from the saying onwards, be the change you want to see in the world, so therefore the change has to change. I mean, it sounds almost like a riddle, and there's probably a tautological truth in it. So anyway, it's true. But you know, exploring that, what is the change that needs to change? Like my perception, my self-identity, I mean, this is also puzzling. And I'm wondering, when you work in your groups and when you approach your projects, the kind of fluidity or the malleable aspect, how important is that to you, that you go in and you know or don't know what the outcome might be, and you don't want to be obsessive about your idealistic approach, but you let go of that? How important is that for you?
It's very important to me, but at the same time, I feel like it's also, yeah, it's also impossible in a way to kind of escape any kind of any kind of vision that you have or a desired outcome that you have. I think that is close to impossible to really fully let go, but that is still the goal, I feel like, when we're talking about that sense of curiosity and playfulness that can only fully unfold when we really let go of the goal. So I think it's just something that we can remind ourselves again and again through the process, and to always come back to reflect on, okay, what pre-assumptions and what prejudices and what judgments do I hold that are actually impacting the path, and that are actually impacting and also narrowing the range of possibilities of possible outcomes. So I think it's a practice of always coming back to, okay, wait, but what are my own limitations, and what which it's like when you do like an academic study of like, okay, the limitations of the study and the limitations of any exploration is always the human, in a way, because we are imperfect and we cannot fully let go of all the concepts that we are carrying, that we're bringing in. But what we can do is kind of develop a sensitivity for that, and develop, or like being able, and being able to really be self-critical, to be humble, as I said before, to kind of always check back in of, okay, but what is it that where I impose like my own views now? Where is it, like, in which ways am I influencing and impacting a certain development with my own imperfect pre-assumptions, and with the set of concepts that I already bring in. So for example, that can be there can be, for example, the like internalized capitalism, for example, that we kind of just bring in, or it can be a certain privileged position that we grew up in, and that we just have so deeply entrenched in ourselves, in our way of being, in our way of communicating, that it always impacts how we view the world. But I think it's not about, like, you shouldn't let yourself be blocked by the fear of doing something wrong, or by the fear of kind of imposing your own worldviews again and again, and kind of not being able to transcend them, not being able to step over them. But I think what is most important is really to stay again in that vulnerability of your own imperfection and of your own conditioning that you just bring in. And when you are open to always check back in, to reflect yourself, and to be open to readjust, and to always kind of
playing with the feedback loops, so to say.
Exactly.
And this questioning also of anticipatory assumptions, that's what we say as the predominant authority of our time. So our assumptions, interestingly though, our assumptions make us, right? I mean, we have these assumptions, we come with them, and then we think this and that might be the future. Questioning them in ourselves is a good process to be self-reflective. But also with that, it comes the realization that we can never look into someone else's head and really fully know the assumptions that person is carrying.
Yes, and that's why we need co-creation. That's why we need all of us. That's why we need group settings and collective processes, in order to bring in as many voices and perspectives as possible, in which we merge our own, like, imperfect, kind of very distinct views on the world, and very distinct backgrounds, in order to really create something new. Because we only bring in a certain part that is super important. Like, every single one of us kind of is shaped in a certain way, like literally, and also like mentally, and with everything that they bring in. So everyone brings in something unique, and all of these parts are needed, and all of these parts are important, and all of these different ways of being, all of these puzzle pieces are really needed. So I think everyone just can kind of find out, okay, what role can I play? What do I bring in? Which qualities can I bring in? And then in co-creation with one another, something closer to the truth kind of can emerge.
I totally would subscribe to that. And there's always a sentence I use, or a question I like to pose is, who else could we become together? Because that's the synergy effect that will happen, not by not knowing, and not by distancing each from each other, but by actually meeting, and actually by as you mentioned earlier, also listening in and tuning in. And then probably also, that's my mental concept, prioritizing to understand rather than prioritizing to be understood, right? I mean, I always want to be understood, of course, but it might actually be more helpful to set that aside, and then prioritize to understand, and learn more from the other voices that have something to say, or even don't have a lobby to speak up. There's there's a lot in it. Yeah, how are we with the time actually? I don't see the time here right now. So.
It's 11:15.
Yeah, maybe summing up a little bit. What I definitely love, I mean, that I love so much what you say. I love so much what I see and from your projects, and that's as actually a compliment I would to tell you. What I love is the wisdom and foresight which you situate in your projects, and also the way how you personally utilize social media. Because I think in times where social media can also be polarizing, and it obviously is, you somehow have the ability to really make the best out of it, and that's a craft, I think. And there's more to it, from the psychologically soothing voice that you have, and from the mindset, which is a true inspiration. It's lovely to learn from you and to listen to your insights and your learning experience and to witness that. So it's kind of a great journey to be connected and be part of it and become part of that. And also, again, subscribing to your co-creating ambition and ideal. I think that's indeed something where we really need to develop, create, and evolve a collective form of intelligence that actually deserves to be called intelligent, and has something where we feel comfortable with. So it must be more than just pure intellect. It must be more than that. And I was wondering, with your approach, like what do you think, how it might unfold? Like if you can anticipate a little bit your own future, your own next steps, what you desire, what you dream of, what you would like to prefer to see unfold and evolve. What would that be?
I can imagine that you want to know it. I would also love to know it. Actually, at the moment, not so much. At the moment, I'm really very, very busy practicing holding the empty space. And yeah, so for me, just there are many kind of possibilities and many kind of puzzle pieces that are just lingering in that space, and I feel like it will all merge and come together in even more rich ways over time. So I feel like no, I don't even want to kind of limit the possible outcomes by already saying or kind of pinpointing or envisioning a certain certain optimal state or outcome or desired future. So at the moment it's a very, very colorful and brave and intense mix of different things. So for me, it's the conversations. It's also the work with ceremonial cacao, which is a more like spiritual practice that I bring in, which also helps us to enlarge our capacity to hold the unknown and to tune into inner voices, tune into more subtle wisdom that we carry. It's movement. It's the practice with like the spontaneity of movement, with dance practices and events that I have in Vienna, for example, where it's really about that exploration through movement. I also have a podcast that I kind of I'm also reviving at the moment. So it's like just a mix of various things. Then there's also this love for video work that I have, where I feel like also through capturing humans, through that collective fascination that we have for the moving image. That's also a beautiful tool to use to really also translate and show all that is that is happening on a more subtle and intuitive level. So it's many things, and I yeah, I'm really very, very bravely and curiously exploring. So it's really one step after another, and yeah, we'll see how it all unfolds. But I feel like this conversation right now, yeah, was a beautiful mirror of so many aspects, and of that, yeah, of that core in a way also that is not really tangible, and that can unfold and be molded into many different forms and many different, yeah, modalities, and yeah.
There's, I think, yeah, yeah. I think there's a beauty in learning journeys, or that's the beauty in learning journeys, that you want to be surprised, you want to, you celebrate and embrace getting surprised, and you love that, the surprising element that makes it so fascinating. And surprising yourself, surprising others, being surprised by others. I love that too. No, that's definitely that was a treat. That was truly pleasurable to talk to you. Super privileged to find the time together. And yeah, thank you for sharing your insights, for sharing your words and your explanations and descriptions. That's magical, really cool.
Thank you so much for this wonderful talk and exploration through words and concepts and, yeah, feelings, and it was beautiful.
So how do I stop this now? There, lovely. Okay, thank you so much.